وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
On the subject of Salatul Jama'ah, there are certain very simple laws towards which I would like to draw your attention. The key word in Namaz Jama'ah and Salatul Jama'ah is discipline. That before we even commence Salat, what is very important to understand is that a sense of discipline is being instilled in the Muslims, that they will stand together as close to each other as possible and in a straight line. That is very important in Salatul Jama'ah, that they will stand as close to each other as possible, and the line they form has got to be straight, and we must see that the line formed is straight by placing ourselves in such a manner that we are all in one line and the distance between the two is as little or is the least, because there is no charm in standing next to other being so separate from each other. We've got to be as close, not very close to render it impossible for the other fellow to pray, but at least we must be close enough, at least it should be so close that a rich man can sometimes smell the sweat of a laborer. Because there is no class. A gaya ain ladai mein agar waqt namaz, Allama Iqbal says, ek hi saf mein khade reh gaye Mahmood o Ayaz. You see, this was the Muslim sort of practice, that even if it was in the battlefield, if they stood for Salat, ek hi saf mein khade reh gaye Mahmood o Ayaz. Mahmood is the king, Ayaz was his slave. But in one line, Mahmood will stand and also Ayaz will stand. Phir na koi banda raha aur na koi banda nawaz. Phir there is no one a slave and no one is the master before Allah, the master of everyone. So that is one thing. Second thing is that as long as the first line has not been completed, it is against the discipline of Namaz Jamaat to start the second line. I mean, sometimes we can't even understand why people do this. Unless you have arrived late and you think that Imam will stand soon and I won't be able to join in ruku', then you may start as close to the line as possible so that you may meet him in ruku'. But if you have come in time, then we must see that the first line is first completed, full. And the thawab in the first line of Jama'ah is much more and higher than the Salat in the second line. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that join the right side first, the right side of Imam. Finish the right side, fill it first, then the left side of Imam. And when that is over, then start the second line. Same way, right first, and then the left, and then the third. And do not start a fresh line till the previous line has been completed. This is the discipline of Salatul Jama'ah, where the unity is seen as practiced. The third thing is that as long as Imam has not said Allahu Akbar, that is Takbiratul Ihram, the followers cannot say Allahu Akbar. If you say Takbiratul Ihram together with Imam or before Imam, then there is no Salatul Jama'ah. Salatul Jama'ah is after the Imam has said Allahu Akbar, then we follow and say Allahu Akbar immediately. And the Imam has been told by Sharia to wait for a few seconds so that as many followers as possible may say Allahu Akbar. For the Prophet said that when you meet the Imam in his takbir, before he starts Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim for the surah of Alhamd, if you meet him then, the thawab that you get then is more than tons and tons of gold that you may give in charity. That is why the Imam has been told to wait for a few seconds. He says, Allahu Akbar, and then he waits. He breathes. Few seconds, so that as many people as they can say Allahu Akbar will say Allahu Akbar, and then he will start his surah and give them that opportunity of joining. So we must maintain this. And finally, before I go to my subject, we will not read any surah which Imam reads. In Namaz al-Maghrib and Isha, we can hear him because he's supposed to recite loudly. We will not read Surah Al-Hamd if we are following, and we will not read the second surah either. He will read because he is the one who is leading. And we will listen patiently till he finishes. After that, when we go to Ruku, we will read together with him. When we go to Sajda, we will read together with him. Qunut, we will also read. Tashahud, we will read. Everything else we will read, but we will not read the surahs. In the first rakat also, in the second rakat. No. In that prayer, like Dhuhr and Asr, where the Imam is himself reading silently and we cannot hear him, there of course we will not read the surah, but we will read tasbih, any tasbih. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Astaghfirullah, Salawat and things like that. Anything that you can read, because surah itself, being the central part of Salat, is being conducted by the one who is leading. And I have to say this repeatedly, I know this, but inshallah, fadhakkir, remind them, Allah says, remind them, that we must not go to ruku' or sajda or rise before Imam has done it. In acts, we must follow Imam. In recitation, you can go even forward. But in acts, he says Allahu Akbar, you will say Allahu Akbar. When he goes to ruku', then you will follow and go in ruku'. When he rises from ruku', Sami Allahu liman hamida, then you will rise, not before him. Go to sajda after he has gone, rise after him. I mean, I cannot understand what is the hurry when we are in Salatul Jama'ah. It hardly is a matter of fraction of seconds. So it must be a proper discipline. May Allah give us tawfiq to follow these Masa'il and show this world, because we don't understand. When the world looks at Salatul Jama'ah, the non-Muslim world, it is really impressed. Consider millions of people in Khana-e-Kaaba, for example, reciting Salat behind an Imam. And when the world sees that they all go together to prostrate and to bow down before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is one Imam who leads, and the crowd is colorful and motley, there are blacks and whites and yellows and whatever color may be, high and low, everyone together saying Allahu Akbar and going to sajda together, it is shaking the world. We don't realize it has an impact. So wherever, whether a small jama'ah or a large jama'ah, a small congregation or a large congregation, it has got to be like this. Last night we were talking about Ihdina Siraatal Mustaqima, and the following ayah is the completion of this surah. From tomorrow I will start another surah, but it is a secret. If I reveal it, then the cat will be out of the bag. So, but tonight I want to finish it. Siraatal Ladheena An'amta Alayhim, Ghayril Maghdubi Alayhim Wal-Dhalleen. This is to describe which Siraat we want to follow. Ya Allah, guide us unto the straight path. Which path? Now, instead of saying which path, I mean, just be careful what I say. Allah is describing whose path. There's a difference. Allah could have described the path itself by saying mustaqim and then saying giving other attributes and qualities of Siraat. But He is not giving the qualities of Siraat anymore. Now He is giving the qualities of those whose Siraat we should follow. Guide us unto the straight path, the path of those whom you have blessed with your ni'mah, and not of those who have incurred your anger and wrath, and not of those who have gone astray. It's so clear. Now, taking my subject which I brought before you last night for further 20 minutes only, who are they who have been blessed? Is this ni'mat only the worldly ni'mah, which means wealth, knowledge, or which means strength and influence, which means large families? What does it mean? If it is only the worldly ni'mah, then the kuffar have more than Muslims have. So it will be Siraatal Ladheena An'amta Alayhim, Siraat of Europe, Siraat of North America, because they are more blessed and they have got more wealth, and Siraat of those Muslim countries who are worse than even kuffar. They call themselves Muslim. Their practices are worse than even kuffar. Shall we take them as ideal? We cannot. Therefore, this ni'mah here, in this ayah, has got to have a special meaning. It means that ni'mah of faith and guidance, which remains with them every moment of life. There is hardly one moment in their lives where the ni'mah is not together with them. And you will not be able to find, even if you take pages and pages out of history, anyone except Ahlul Bayt Salamullah Alayhim. You will not be able. These are the only people for whom you can, and everyone will vouch, that in their lives there has never been a moment where there has been slight distraction, and every time ni'mat of Allah, the faith and the guidance has been with them. Ni'mah here is iman, and ni'mah is here hidayah. And if somebody comes to me and says, Mullah Sahab, I want to know a mas'ala, and I say, well, the answer is this, but if I am wrong, correct me. What will happen? If I go to a doctor and say I'm suffering from a particular thing, he says, well, the medicine is this, but if I am wrong, correct me. I'll die of heart attack there and there. Because if the doctor asks me to correct him, then what did I come here for? The doctor has got to tell me that this is the diagnosis and this is the medicine. Over. The Masa'il, this is your question and this is the answer. Follow it. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to do. So, An'amta Alayhim means that there has got to be constantly hidayah, constant ni'mah, with such individuals where there has been no distraction. I have said this before. Imam Ahmad Hanbal, the Imam, one of the 4 Imams of Ahlul Sunnah, was sitting in his mosque when someone came and asked him, said, hey Imam, oh Imam, who was the best of the companions after the Prophet died so that we could follow him? Naturally he said Abu Bakr was the best. And thereafter Umar, and thereafter Uthman. When he finished, another gentleman stood up and said, وَمَا تَقُولُ فِي عَلِي? And what do you say about Ali ibn Abi Talib? Imam Ahmad Hanbal replied that you have asked me of the companions. Ali is not a companion. إِنَّهُ نَفْسُ الرَّسُولِ. He is the inalienable part, inseparable part of Rasul. He is the self of Rasul. How can I compare him with anybody else? So if the world knew this, that there is a personality which is the self of Rasul, There was no need of going anywhere else. And this is the reason why. These are the people who never incurred any anger of Allah because they committed no sins. They never went astray because they were not ignorant. And the Iman and guidance with them remained constant. Siraatal Ladheena An'amta Alayhim. Today we can ask anyone, whether he is a Shia or a Sunni, regardless of his path that he follows, dispassionately and without any bias, to answer this question, who are An'amta Alayhim, Ghayril Maghdubi Alayhim wal-Dhalleen, at all times, because we need guidance at all times. There cannot be a time in my life where I will say, for this particular moment in my life, I can be doing anything I like. It cannot be. Now it is for this reason, gentlemen, that on the night that Imam Ali alayhi salam, early morning when he passed away, that is on 21st Ramadan, which inshallah is soon coming and we will be again meeting. After the burial of Imam Hassan came to the mosque. And the people assembled the way we have assembled here to console Imam and to extend condolence and to grieve over the parting of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Imam Hassan stood up and he said, last night, a person passed away from us and left us and departed, whose match could not be found earlier and whose parallel will not be found later. He said this. You won't find the like of him again. Wa ana, and now he started. Ana ibn Makkah wa Muna. Wa ana ibn al-Bashir an-Nadhir. Wa ana ibn Siraj al-Munir. I am the son of Makkah and Muna. I am the son of one who came to warn you and give you good news of Jannah. I am the one who is the son of the well-lit, brilliant light, that is the Prophet. I belong to the group for whom Allah said, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. That Allah wants to cleanse, He has decided that He will cleanse us of all impurities. I am the one. And then he said silently, Ibn Abbas stood up and he said, people, have you heard him? Is there anyone else on earth who could be followed? They said, no. فَبَايِعُوهُ, then come and do his bay'ah. And all of them came and did bay'ah and said, Ya Hassan, you are now our Imam and we shall follow you. Now, there is a very important point which I would like to bring to your notice, because we are all being subjected and victimized by so many things which are not correct, and sometimes the faith starts shaking. You know, the personality of Imam Ali alayhi salam was such that no one could shake him. They had seen him with the Prophet. They had seen him in Khaybar, and they had seen him in Khandaq. They had seen him in Badr, and they had seen him in Uhud. They had seen him even afterwards in Jamal and Siffin. They saw his rule, and every young and old there in the Islamic world knew who Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was. True? So much so that one man came to Muawiyah after Imam Ali alayhi salam and said, I have deserted Ali long ago to come to you because I have deserted a man who is dumb, a speechless person. And Muawiyah said, have you come to cheat me or deceive me? Do you know that the Arabs have learned how to speak from Ali ibn Abi Talib? He is the fountainhead of eloquence. You are telling me he was dumb? I know who Ali ibn Abi Talib is and was. So even the enemy knew who Ali ibn Abi Talib was. And there were some friends who were, God forbid, maybe to a certain extent like us, For namaz, they went behind Imam Ali. For food, they went to Muawiyah. Yes. Men like Abu Huraira, when he was asked, he says that salat behind Ali is good and pure. Food behind with Muawiyah is tasty. Ali eats dates and dry loaves. There we get ghee and halwa. You see? So that, of course, is different. But the people knew that even salat, and after years of khilafah, when Imam Ali alayhi salam was allowed to come on the caliphate, and the first salat was led by him, first namaz, as a Khalifatul Muslimin and Khalifatul Rasulillah, when he first led the prayers, the Muslims themselves, after finishing the prayers, looked at each other and said, today we have been reminded of the Prophet's salat. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم Siraatal Ladheena An'amta Alayhim. So his personality could not be tarnished, although they tried. But Imam Hassan alayhi salam and Imam Hussein alayhi salam, these two were the next in line, and a perfectly organized and calculated machinery was invented to tarnish the names of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, so that the world would doubt the conduct and behavior of Imam Hassan. Today, look at the books that are being written by Imam Hassan, that he was a playboy, that he married every night and divorced every other day. Philip Hitti writes that he died of tuberculosis because he married so often, as if he was there to diagnose it. And the sorry picture of all this is that when it is written in English, our people think it is gospel truth. It is English, Baba. The book is written in Arabic. Oh, Arabic. English, yes, it is gospel truth. What is their gospel truth? When we know it for certain that there has been prejudice and bias against Imam Hassan, and there was a whole machinery set up by Muawiyah himself to prove to the world that it is Hassan who is a useless figure. And what was Hassan alayhi salam? Tonight, I must speak about that Mawla and that Sayyid who is really being ignored by us all. We remember him on 15th Ramadan, and then we will remember him on Safar, 7th Safar, and over. Abu Huraira, who is the principal reporter of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, he says that in my lifetime, whenever I saw Imam Hassan, I wept and cried. Tears came down my cheeks. Because whenever I saw him, I remembered the Prophet, because he resembled the Prophet in his conduct and also in his physique. Whenever I saw him, whenever he happened to pass, and Jalal Uyun, not of Majlisi, but Jalal Uyun Adaw, it writes that one day Imam Hassan sat down just after namaz at the threshold of his house, and people were just passing. It was summer. It was hot. People happened to pass. Whoever passed, the moment he saw Imam Hassan, Yabna Rasulullah Salamun Alaykum, he would stand there and there. They could not pass by him till there was a crowd of people, and people could not cross the road because anyone, not talking, just looking at Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Till Imam himself collected his mat and musalla and said, people, you must go to work. Please go on your way. And he went inside. That was the personality of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. In 40 Hijrah, Imam Ali alayhi salam is assassinated and is martyred. And up to 50 Hijrah, Imam Hassan lived. In 41 Hijrah, it is said that Imam Hassan entered into sulh. Nobody cares to go into the details, that the proposition of sulh was not from Imam Hassan. The proposition of sulh came from Muawiyah. And no one cares to go into the lines of history. What happened? Imam Hassan alayhi salam had those people in the army who had already decided that the moment his army and Muawiyah's army will come closer, they will hand him over to Muawiyah. They had decided that we will hand him over to Muawiyah. And Muawiyah had already bribed them and they had already accepted the bribery. And those who would say no, they would be killed because there was some very sincere campaigning. And when Imam Hassan alayhi salam came to know about this, and even when he started to give them a call for jihad, people were not coming out. He had to stay out of Medina for 4 days, waiting for people and recruitment to come into the army. And by the time Imam Hassan came to know that there was no support and there will be a futile bloodshed, at that time Muawiyah had already proposed that let us come to a ceasefire. And Imam Hassan alayhi salam accepted to what is called Atash Bast, or what is ceasefire, on certain conditions. And Imam Hassan left. And in Medina, whenever he was being taunted by people, that you are the one who humiliated Muslims, he used to say, I have given you honor, because otherwise you would have been mercilessly butchered. You were not prepared even to accompany me, you were not prepared to support me, and there would have been nothing but bloodshed for you. But the question is not this. The question is that if this sulh would have been in favor of Muawiyah, as it is said, then after Imam Hassan had left for Medina, Muawiyah would not have kept the paper under his feet. He kept the paper under his feet and said, this understanding and agreement between me and Hassan is under my feet. I don't care what will happen. It shows that there was something which went on, which Muawiyah did not find to his liking. But what about those 10 years in which Imam Hassan lived in Medina? The world knew that Imamat was here and Khilafat was there at Imam Hassan. And they used to come for 10 years. He guided the Ummah onto the right path, knowing everybody knew that there was no Siraatal Mustaqim except Imam Hassan. For 10 years. No one is talking about those 10 years. Everybody is talking about only that suluh, that they call it suluh. For 10 years, Imam Hassan alayhi salam guided the Ummah, and the Ummah knew that this is as-Siraat al-Mustaqim. The second accusation, that he died. And when he died, 250 women of Medina went behind his janazah saying, we are all his wives. How many? 250. That means Imam alayhi salam had no other business except getting married and divorcing, and 250 widows were behind his janazah and the other people. Now, I went through the history all over. Now, if a person really marries 250 wives, at least how many should deliver? Huh? At least we should see the number of 50 children, 70 children, 90 children, some. No one has gone beyond 13. No one has gone beyond 13. And to have 13 children, we know it, was possible with one wife also. At the most, two. But 250 wives who lived with Imam for shorter or longer period, none of them had any issues by the Imam. They were simply there to cry behind the janazah of Imam. People were being paid that you prepare one hadith against Imam Hassan, and this is your prize. You prepare another hadith. Do you know, my friends, that Tafsir of Surah, Ad-Durr al-Manfur, which is the most famous tafsir of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, writes that Imam Ali alayhi salam led namaz al-Subuh after having drunk? Now what happened actually? It is human psychology that when we cannot match you, or our leaders cannot match your leaders, then what we do is we try to bring down your leaders to the level of our leaders. You see, because our leaders cannot match your leaders. Your leaders are impeccable, immaculate. So what we do is that we now try to bring them down so that two seem together, and they are totally different. And this disease and sickness goes on even today. For 10 years, my friends, Imam Hassan guided the Ummah. And other factor is Imam Hussain alayhi salam lived with him, supporting him for 10 years. They found this is very important. So one hadith has been prepared, that Imam Hussain alayhi salam and Imam Hassan always quarreled. Banu Umayyah have prepared this, that these brothers never agreed. And Imam Hussain alayhi salam is reported to have said that I wish my nose were cut off rather than live with Imam Hassan. They lived together. They served the Ummah together. And the preparation was such that, oh my brother Hussein, I am trying my level best to keep a Siraatal Mustaqim, reaching the Ummah. But when you find that this Siraat is now in a problem, then you will give your blood. If I am in your place, I will sacrifice. If you are in my place, you will remain the way I remain. And there was no change. The change came, this must be understood, that although these people were not qualified, but at least they maintained something. At least namaz was there. At least zakat and hajj was there. At least Quran was there. At least La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah was there. But Muawiyah in his later days started this, which Yazid took to the pinnacle. What was that? To doubt in Sharia itself and to play with Sharia. Murujud Dhahab, Mas'udi, the earliest writer, writes that going for the battle of Siffin, Muawiyah declared that we will leave on Wednesday. Some of those very pious people, they told him that, why not wait for Namaz-e-Jummah? We'll go Friday after Jummah. He said, if that is the case, why don't you agree to pray Jummah today? And it is unbelievable, but it is true, reported by the earliest historian, that the Muslims around Muawiyah prayed Namaz-e-Jummah on Wednesday. That was the beginning. And when Yazid came, and for the first time when he said, that which has been recorded by all, لَعِبَتْ بَنُو هَاشِمْ بِالْمُلْكِ فَلَا خَبَرٌ جَاءَ وَلَا وَحْيٌ نَزَلْ. Banu Hashim have played a game. There has been no revelation and no farishta or no malaika ever came. But this was hitting at the root. When you hit at the root, then what is required is blood and sacrifice. That is why the circumstances were different. Till Imam Hassan, Imam saw that what is needed is a Siraatal Mustaqim to be maintained and the people to know what is true Islam. When Imam Hussain saw that even Siraat is being now annihilated, then he stood up and said, now even at the expense of my life, I shall see that this is maintained. The approach was different. The circumstances were different. And this is what we don't understand. The Prophet said, Al-Hasan wal-Husayn imamani qama aw qa'ada. As if he knew. Definitely he knew. He said, Hassan and Hussein are imams, whether they sit or they rise. That means whether they retire or they rise. If there is retirement, as it was, by Atish Bast or ceasefire, or by renouncing that worldly affair and going to the work of Hidayah from Medina, or whether it is rising with the hand, sword in hand, they are imams. And this is the only point where we fall different from others. The time has come, my friends, that we are proud of those whom we follow. We are trying to be apologetic. You are in a minority. We are in a minority. So what? So what? Allah in Quran says, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Very few servants and slaves of mine are grateful. قليل. وَكَمْ مِنْ فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرَةً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And how many times a small group will overcome the bigger group with the permission of God. So there's no question of how many we are. That is one thing. Second thing, if you are to judge by minority and majority, then the majority today is Christianity and minority is Muslims. What will you say now? Because they are the majority, therefore they are right. There is no question of majority. What happened is, which we must understand, there was a mob psychology. People in authority normally always, النَّاسُ عَلَى دِينِ مُلُوكِهِمْ, people in authority, whatever they said was accepted, although they knew the truth. Few people did not want to leave Ali ibn Abi Talib. The others, they followed the, what we Swahili says, Fatam Shindo. They wanted to follow the Mshindo. The government and the authority, people were getting money, my dear friends. Nepotism started. Fraternization started. Brotherization started. People were getting into authorities. People were getting money. For the sake of that, people forgot Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. I mean, there is a limit to what you can say. When Mawla sits with all the companions who were there in Ghadir, and he says, were you not in Ghadir? Were you not in Ghadir? Did you hear the Prophet say, Man kuntu mawlahu fahada aliyun mawlahu? Didn't you see? You know what the answer? Mawla, we have gone all, you have forgotten. Fear of authority. Couldn't say no. We have forgotten. This is how it all happened. A few remained steadfast, knowing where the truth was. And this is something which I can never reconcile in myself, that at every problem that arose, Hazrat Umar used to say, go to Ali. If a delegation came from Rome, that means not this Rome, but from Byzantine Empire, if they came and asked questions, no one was there to answer, go to Ali. If there was a case which was a bit problematic and one did not know, ask Ali or call Ali. Tafsir of Quran, if nobody knew what is the meaning of it, call Ali and ask Ali, so that he will tell us what it is. For Quran, for Hadith, for problems, for solutions. Ask Ali, to an extent that at least 11 times in his life he has said, Lawla Aliyun lahalaka Umar. If Ali were not there, Umar would have been destroyed or perished. And once he said, Ya Ali, may Allah not keep me alive for a day when you are not there. So when he was dying, Abdullah ibn Abbas came to him. When a man dies, then of course everything is before him. It is a video of activities. May Allah give us those last moments of our lives in peace. And not only in peace, but in ability to be on the path of Siraatal Mustaqim. That means the path of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. Salamullah alayhi. That is what we should ask always. Abdullah ibn Abbas came and Hazrat Umar said, Abdullah, I am worried about who should I hand over. My question is, why should you worry when the Prophet did not worry? You people believe that the Prophet went away and kept everything in the hands of Ummah to decide. But you are worried. So Abdullah ibn Abbas said, if you are worried, then why not give it to Talha? Talha is one of the very famous companions. The answer he gave was that that man walks with his nose in the sky. That means he's very proud. Yeah, he was proud because when Talha died, some of his estate was in the form of golden bricks. And in order to divide among his heirs, people brought axes to cut and break those bricks. You can imagine the wealth. So naturally he was walking with his nose in the sky. Why not give it? They gave so many names. He tried to find fault with everyone. So Abdullah ibn Abbas says, finally I said, why not give it to Ali ibn Abi Talib? Why not give it to Uthman? He said, if I give it to Uthman ibn Mu'ayt, who will overwhelm and overpower the whole ummah. Ibn Mu'ayt means Banu Umayyah. He said, then give it to Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now look at the answer. I'm surprised. He said, if I give it to that man, he will guide the ummah into the right path. I can't understand. If you really believe so, then why not hand over? But it was against all political expediency. And that is the reason why we are so proud that when we say, Ihdina Siraatal Mustaqim, oh Allah, guide us unto the straight path. And immediately we say, Siraatal Ladheena An'amta Alayhim, Ghayril Maghdubi Alayhim wal-Dhalleen. We believe that we are asking him that we may remain steadfast on the path of Ahlul Bayt. Salamullah alayhim ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil